I caught my husband with my son's fiancée. I was in total shock when I found out that she was. My name is Clara Thompson. And at 53 years old, I never imagined I would discover my husband of 30 years in bed with my only son's fiancée just 3 weeks before their wedding. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could, shattering our family into pieces I wasn't sure could ever be put back together. But what shocked me most wasn't finding them together. It was what my son whispered when he stopped me from confronting them. Mom, I already knew. And it's not what you think. Before I continue with my story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayal sting your heart. The truth of what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family. For 30 years, I thought I had built the perfect life. Our colonial-style home in suburban Boston with its white picket fence and manicured lawn was the envy of our neighborhood. My husband Richard, a successful architect at 55, had designed our dream house when we first married. From the outside looking in, we were the American dream personified. Our son Jason was the greatest pride of my life. At 28, he had just finished his residency and was about to begin his career as a pediatrician at Boston Children's Hospital. Handsome like his father, but with my auburn hair and compassionate nature, Jason was everything a mother could hope for in a son. We'd always been close, sharing Sunday brunches, even during his hectic medical school years. I still remember the spring day when Jason brought Sophia home to meet us for the first time. She walked through our front door with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how stunning she was. At 26, Sophia worked in pharmaceutical sales and carried herself with the polished perfection of someone accustomed to making good impressions. Her long blonde hair framed a face that belonged in magazines, and her charm worked instantly on Richard. "Mom, Dad, this is Sophia," Jason had said, his arm around her waist. "The woman I've been telling you about." Something in his voice sounded strained, but I attributed it to nervousness. After all, he had never brought a girlfriend home to meet us before. "It's wonderful to finally meet you," I said, embracing her. "Jason has told us so much about you. All good things, I hope." Sophia laughed, her eyes darting to Richard. "Your home is absolutely beautiful, Mr. Thompson. Jason mentioned you designed it yourself." Richard beamed with pride. "Call me Richard. And yes, one of my first projects. I'd be happy to show you around later." Looking back, I should have noticed how her eyes lingered on Richard a moment too long, or how eagerly he offered the tour. But I was too busy being thrilled that my son had found someone so accomplished and poised. 6 months later came the engagement announcement. Jason proposed during a weekend trip to Cape Cod, presenting Sophia with his grandmother's restored vintage ring. When they called to share the news, I cried tears of joy. My son was settling down with someone who seemed perfect for him. I immediately threw myself into wedding planning, creating Pinterest boards and scheduling venue visits. "You seem more excited about this wedding than I am," Jason joked during one of our planning sessions. I laughed it off, but something in his expression gave me pause. There was a distance in his eyes I hadn't noticed before. "Are you happy, sweetheart?" I asked. "Of course, Mom," he answered quickly. Too quickly. "Just overwhelmed with finishing residency and planning a wedding at the same time." I accepted his explanation and continued coordinating with Sophia on flower arrangements and menu selections. She seemed oddly detached from the process, agreeing to whatever I suggested with a casual, "Whatever you think is best, Clara." Most brides I knew had strong opinions about their wedding day, but I appreciated what I mistook for flexibility. The first real hint that something wasn't right came during a family dinner 2 months before the wedding. Richard had insisted on cooking his specialty grilled salmon with lemon butter sauce. As he served Sophia, his hand brushed her shoulder, lingering there a moment too long. She didn't pull away. When Richard excused himself to get another bottle of wine, Sophia's eyes followed him. There was an intensity in her gaze that made my stomach tighten. "This fish is delicious," Jason said, breaking the uncomfortable silence. Dad's outdone himself. He certainly has, Sophia replied, her tone carrying a double meaning that made me shift in my seat. Later that night, I mentioned what I'd observed to Richard. Don't be ridiculous, Clara, he scoffed. She's going to be our daughter-in-law. I was just being welcoming. I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. So I pushed my suspicions aside and threw myself deeper into wedding preparations. In the weeks that followed, Richard started working later than usual. He changed his cologne to something stronger, more youthful. His phone, once carelessly left on countertops or coffee tables, was suddenly password protected and never out of reach. When I asked about these changes, he dismissed my concerns as pre-wedding stress. You're making something out of nothing, he insisted. Maybe you should take up yoga again. It helped with your anxiety before. I almost believed him, almost convinced myself that the strange tension I felt whenever Sophia and Richard were in the same room was all in my imagination. After all, we had 30 years of marriage behind us. Surely that counted for something. But deep down in the place where intuition lives, I knew something was wrong in my perfect family picture, and its edges were beginning to curl and burn. The day that changed everything started normally enough. I had spent the morning with my sister Anne, helping her pack for her move to Florida. We finished earlier than expected, so I headed home around 2, looking forward to a quiet cup of tea before starting dinner. Our house was silent when I entered, which wasn't unusual. Richard often worked from his home office with headphones on, completely absorbed in his architectural designs. I kicked off my shoes and padded toward the kitchen, but stopped when I heard a sound from upstairs, a laugh, a woman's laugh followed by a lower murmur. My first thought was that Jason and Sophia had stopped by. They had a key after all. Perhaps they were discussing wedding details with Richard. But something about the intimate tone made the hair on my arm stand up. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. The sounds grew clearer as I approached the guest bedroom, not our master bedroom, which somehow made it worse. They hadn't even respected our marital bed. The door wasn't completely closed. Through the inch-wide gap, I saw them. My husband of 30 years and my son's fiancée tangled in sheets that I had washed just days before. The blood drained from my face. My hands went numb. Time stretched and distorted as my brain struggled to process what my eyes were seeing. Richard's silver hair against Sophia's smooth back, her red manicured nails digging into his shoulders. The wedding band on his left hand, the one I had placed there 3 decades ago, glinting in the afternoon sun. I must have made a sound because suddenly they both turned toward the door. Richard's face went slack with shock. Sophia's expression flickered from surprise to something more calculated. Clara! Richard scrambled to cover himself, his voice strangled. This isn't... I can explain. Explain what? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, calm despite the hurricane raging inside me. How you're sleeping with our son's fiancée. Please, Richard, I'd love to hear that explanation. Sophia didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She sat up, sheet clutched loosely to her chest, watching me with the clinical interest of someone observing an experiment. Clara, let's talk about this reasonably, she said, her voice steady. Things aren't always what they seem. The audacity of her response knocked the wind from my lungs. I backed away from the door, unable to stand another second in their presence. Get out, I whispered, then louder. Get out of my house, both of you. I fled downstairs, grabbed my purse and keys, and drove away before Richard could follow. My vision blurred with tears as I navigated familiar streets that suddenly felt alien. I had no destination in mind, just the desperate need to put distance between myself and the scene that had shattered my reality. For hours I drove aimlessly, mind-cycling through memories that now seemed suspect. Richard's late nights, Sophia's insistence that she drop off wedding samples at our house when Jason was working, the inside jokes I hadn't understood. Had I been blind or simply unwilling to see? As the initial shock began to fade, anger took its place, not just at Richard and Sophia, but at myself for missing what now seemed so obvious. And beneath the anger was a deeper, more urgent question: did Jason know the thought of my son being betrayed by both his father and his fiancée was unbearable? I pulled over at a park and called him, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. "Jason, are you at the hospital?" I asked when he answered. "Just finished my shift. Everything okay, Mom? You sound strange." "I need you to come to the house. Right away. It's important." I couldn't tell him over the phone. Some news had to be delivered face to face. "You're scaring me. Is Dad okay? Please, Jason, just come home." I hung up before he could ask more questions and drove back to face whatever came next. By the time I arrived, Richard had moved his car to the garage, hiding it in case Jason arrived before me. Coward. I sat in the driveway rehearsing what I would say to my son. How do you tell someone that the two people they trust most have betrayed them in the worst possible way? Jason's car pulled up 20 minutes later. He rushed to me, concern etched on his face. "Mom, what's going on? Are you sick?" I shook my head, leading him to the backyard patio, where we could talk privately. "I came home early today," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "I found your father and Sophia together, in bed." I expected shock, disbelief, rage. What I didn't expect was the calm that settled over his features or the sad smile that followed. "Mom," he said, gently taking my hands in his. "I already knew. And it's not what you think." "What do you mean you knew?" I pulled my hands away from Jason's, feeling a new betrayal bloom. "You knew your father was sleeping with your fiancée, and you didn't tell me?" Jason's eyes filled with tears as he looked toward the house, then back to me. "It's complicated, Mom. I've known about them for months." The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. "Months? And you're still planning to marry her, Jason? What's going on?" My son took a deep breath, his shoulders hunched as if carrying an impossible weight. "Sophia and I were never really engaged. Not in the way you think." "I don't understand." My voice sounded small, childlike. "Mom, I'm gay." The words stumbled out quickly, as if he'd been holding them back for years. "I've always been gay. I've been hiding it from you and Dad because I was afraid. I was afraid you wouldn't accept me." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My son, my only child, had been hiding such a fundamental part of himself from me. What kind of mother was I that he couldn't trust me with his truth? "Jason," I whispered, reaching for him. "Why wouldn't you tell me? Dad always made comments about those people when I was growing up. Remember Pastor Michael's sermon about traditional families? Dad praised it for weeks, and you never contradicted him." The memory surfaced, Richard nodding vigorously during the sermon. My silent discomfort that I never voiced. My passive acceptance had been interpreted as agreement. "But the engagement, Sophia, I don't understand." Jason wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I met Sophia at a hospital fundraiser. She figured out I was gay almost immediately, said her brother is gay, so she recognized the signs. We became friends. When Dad started pressuring me about settling down, bringing a nice girl home, she offered to help. So this engagement is fake, a performance." It started that way. Jason looked down at his hands. "But then Sophia met Dad at that first dinner. I didn't realize what was happening until weeks later when I caught them together at her apartment. I had stopped by to drop off some wedding magazines you'd given me." My mind reeled, trying to piece together this new reality. "But why continue the charade after you discovered them?" "Because Sophia threatened to out me at the hospital if I exposed them." Jason's voice hardened. "You know how conservative Dr. Brennan is. He's on the board that approves physician positions, and he attends Dad's church. Sophia said she'd make sure everyone knew I was gay, that I'd been lying to patients' parents about having a fiancé. She blackmailed you," I whispered in horror. "And your father went along with this. Dad said he was trying to protect me, that if I just went through with the wedding, found some excuse to end it, later my reputation would be safe. He convinced himself he was doing me a favor." The cruelty of it stole my breath. Richard hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he'd chosen to sacrifice our son's happiness, to protect his own image, and satisfy his desires. Who else knows the truth about you being gay? Marcus. Jason said, a small smile lifting the corners of his mouth despite everything. He's my partner. He's a hospital administrator. We've been together for almost 2 years. 2 years. My son had been in a serious relationship for 2 years, and I hadn't met the person who made him happy. The grief of that realization ached in my chest. I want to meet him, I said firmly. You're Marcus. Jason looked stunned. You do? Of course I do. He's important to you. I reached out to touch my son's face. Jason, I love you. All of you. I'm so sorry I ever made you feel you couldn't tell me the truth. Tears spilled down his cheeks. I should have known you'd understand. I was just so afraid. As we held each other, the full picture of Sophia's manipulation came into focus. She had inserted herself into our family with calculated precision, using Jason's secret as leverage while pursuing Richard. It was breathtakingly cruel, and it had nearly worked. What about the wedding? I asked, pulling back to look at my son. I've been trying to find a way out. Sophia insisted we go through with it. Said we could quietly divorce later. She wanted access to the family money to Dad's connections. I think she's done this before. A cold anger replaced my shock. This woman had terrorized my son, seduced my husband, and attempted to steal our family's security, all while I blindly planned her wedding. No more, I said, standing up with newfound resolve. This ends today. Mom, be careful. Sophia is dangerous. She has evidence photos of me and Marcus that she threatened to send to the hospital board. I squeezed his hand. Let her try. We're done living in fear. It's time your father and Sophia learned what happens when they mess with my family. As if summoned by our conversation, the back door opened. Richard stood frozen in the doorway, his face ashen, as he realized that Jason was with me. Clara, Jason. He started, voice trembling. We need to talk. Yes. I agreed, my voice steel. We certainly do. Richard stepped onto the patio, his confidence visibly shaken. He changed into a crisp button-down shirt and khakis, as if proper attire might somehow mitigate his betrayal. I can explain everything. He began, hands spread in a placating gesture. This situation is more complicated than it seems. Is it, Richard? I crossed my arms. Because Jason has already told me everything. About Sophia. About the blackmail. About how you've been sleeping with our son's pretend fiancée while helping her threaten him. Richard paled. That's not. I was trying to protect our family. By sleeping with the woman blackmailing your son. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. By helping her coerce him into a sham marriage. That's how you protect family. You don't understand the position I was in. Richard countered, his tone defensive. When Sophia told me about Jason being his lifestyle choice, I thought we could handle it quietly, maintain appearances. Sophia agreed to help. Help? Jason stood, hands clenched at his sides. You call what she did helping. She threatened my career, my future. And you took her side. Richard had the audacity to look wounded. I was thinking of your reputation, son. The community's perception. My colleagues, our church, they wouldn't understand. I don't care what they understand. I shouted, 30 years of compliant silence shattering. This is our son, and you chose your reputation and your lust over his happiness. That's unfair, Clara, Richard protested. My relationship with Sophia was... It just happened. We never meant to hurt anyone. Never meant to hurt anyone. Jason's laugh was bitter. You were willing to let me marry a woman who was sleeping with my father. To live a complete lie. How could that not hurt me? The sliding glass door opened again, and Sophia stepped out. She'd dressed carefully, her makeup perfect, despite the situation. Something cold and calculated lurked behind her pleasant expression. I thought I heard voices. she said as if this were any normal family gathering. We should all calm down and discuss this rationally. There's nothing to discuss, I replied, advancing toward her. The wedding is off, the engagement is over. And if you ever threaten my son again, I will make you regret it. Sophia's mask slipped for just an instant, revealing the hardness beneath. Clara, let's be reasonable. Jason and I have an arrangement that benefits everyone. Richard understands that. An arrangement? I was incredulous. You're blackmailing my son while sleeping with my husband. That's not an arrangement, it's extortion. Such dramatic language. Sophia sighed, examining her manicure. I prefer to see it as a mutually beneficial situation. Jason gets the respectable image he needs for his career. Richard and I enjoy each other's company. And you get the perfect family wedding you've been planning so enthusiastically. Her dismissive tone ignited something primal in me. You will not marry my son. You will not take another penny from this family. And you will destroy whatever evidence you think you have over Jason. Sophia's smile hardened. And if I don't? Do you really want everyone at Jason's hospital knowing he's been lying? That the perfect Dr. Thompson prefers men? That would be such a shame for his pediatric practice. Don't you dare threaten him. I stepped closer, my voice low and dangerous. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Richard moved between us. Ladies, please. We can work something out. Perhaps the engagement continues publicly while we figure things out privately. I stared at my husband in disbelief. Are you seriously suggesting we continue this farce, that we let her blackmail our son while you carry on your affair? I'm trying to find a solution that protects everyone, Richard insisted. We've built a life here, Clara. A reputation. We can't just throw that away. A reputation built on lies isn't worth protecting. Jason said quietly, I'm done hiding, Dad. I won't marry Sophia. I won't pretend anymore. You can't be serious. Richard's face flushed with anger. Do you know what this will do to my position at the firm, to our standing in the community? Is that all you care about? I asked, the last threads of my respect for this man unraveling. Your standing, your position. Of course not, but these things matter in the real world, Richard snapped. Not everyone has the luxury of living their truth as they say. That's where you're wrong. Jason straightened his shoulders. Living honestly isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And I'm done sacrificing my happiness for your comfort. Sophia's expression turned ugly. Fine, be noble. But I have photos of you and your boyfriend that will destroy your pristine reputation. One email and everyone will know exactly what kind of doctor is treating their precious children. The threat hung in the air, but instead of cowering, Jason laughed. Send them, he said, the weight of secrets lifting from his voice. I'm not ashamed of loving Marcus. I'm only ashamed that I let fear keep me silent for so long. I felt a surge of pride through my anger and hurt. This was my son, brave, principled, and finally free. You heard him. I told Sophia, your leverage is gone. Now get out of my house. This isn't over, Sophia hissed, grabbing her purse from a nearby chair. Richard, are you coming? For a moment, my husband of 30 years stood frozen between us, his wife and son on one side, his younger lover on the other. The choice he made in that moment would define him forever. Richard. Sophia prompted, impatience edging her voice. Richard looked at me, then at Jason, indecision written across his face. I need time to think. This is all happening so fast. There's nothing to think about, I said coldly. Either you stand with your family or you leave with her. But know this, if you walk out that door with Sophia, don't expect to come back. The ultimatum hung in the air between us. 30 years of marriage balanced against whatever infatuation he felt for this manipulative woman. Richard took a step towards Sophia. Dad, Jason's voice cracked slightly. I'm sorry. Richard whispered, not meeting our eyes. I just need some space to figure things out. As they walked away together, I felt something final break inside me. But alongside the pain was a strange sense of clarity. The man I had loved was gone, perhaps had never truly been the person I thought. I turned to Jason and took his hand. Pack a bag. We're leaving too. Where are we going? He asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can figure out our next move. I squeezed his hand. I meant what I said. This isn't over. We drove in silence to my sister Diane's house in Cambridge. A successful divorce attorney, with a no-nonsense attitude, Diane had always been my rock during difficult times. When she opened the door and saw our expressions, she simply ushered us in without questions. Whatever it is, we'll handle it, she said, pouring 3 glasses of her best scotch. Now tell me everything. And so we did. Jason shared his truth fully for the first time, how he'd known he was gay since high school, his fear of disappointing his father meeting Marcus during his first year of residency. I filled in the gaps about Richard and Sophia's betrayal, the blackmail, the ultimatum I'd given my husband of 30 years. Diane listened without interruption, her expression darkening as the story unfolded. When we finished, she downed her scotch and immediately switched into legal mode. First things first, she said, pulling a yellow legal pad toward her. We need to protect your assets, Clara. Richard will try to hide money, they always do. And we need to neutralize Sophia's threats against Jason. I've been so blind, I whispered, the full weight of my naivety crashing down. How did I not see what was happening in my own home? You saw what you expected to see, Diane said gently. We all do. But now your eyes are open and that's what matters. Jason's phone buzzed with a text message. It's Marcus, he said, relief evident in his voice. He's worried. I told him where we are. Is it okay if he comes over? My heart ached at the hesitation in his question. Of course it is. I want to meet him properly this time. When Marcus arrived 30 minutes later, I understood immediately why Jason loved him. Tall, with kind brown eyes and a gentle demeanor, he entered Diane's house with a quiet confidence. The way his eyes sought out Jason, first full of concern and love, told me everything I needed to know. Mrs. Thompson, he said, extending his hand. I've wanted to meet you properly for so long. I'm just sorry it's under these circumstances. Please call me Clara, I replied, bypassing his hand to pull him into a hug. And thank you for loving my son when he needed it most. That night, as Jason and Marcus spoke quietly in Diane's guest room and my sister made calls to her most ruthless colleagues, I allowed myself to fully process the day's events. My marriage was over. The family I thought I had never truly existed. Yet somehow, amid the wreckage, I felt the first stirrings of something unexpected: freedom. Over cups of tea late into the night, Jason shared details of Sophia's manipulation that made my blood boil. This wasn't her first scheme. Marcus had done some digging after Jason confided in him about the blackmail. She was engaged to a banker in Chicago 2 years ago, Marcus explained, showing us an archived newspaper announcement on his phone. The wedding was called off suddenly. From what I can tell through mutual connections, she was having an affair with his father too. So this is her pattern, I said, pieces clicking into place. Find vulnerable men, manipulate their families, extract what she can. She's smart about it, Marcus continued. Never quite crosses the line into prosecutable fraud, but leaves emotional devastation in her wake. She crossed the line with blackmail this time, Diane interjected. And I've got a friend at the DA's office who would be very interested in that. Jason hesitated. I don't have proof of her threats. It was all verbal. Marcus reached for his hand. But I recorded our conversation after you told me about the blackmail. I wanted insurance in case she ever followed through. She repeats the threats explicitly on the recording. Is that legal? I asked, looking to Diane. Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state for recordings, she acknowledged. But there are exceptions when gathering evidence of criminal activity. At the very least, it gives us leverage. We strategized until dawn, developing a plan to protect Jason's career and secure my financial future. Diane would file emergency divorce papers first thing in the morning, freezing our joint assets before Richard could hide them. Marcus would speak confidentially, with the hospital's legal counsel getting ahead of any potential fallout. As for Sophia, we had something special planned for her. The next morning, I received a text from Richard asking to meet and work things out. I showed it to Diane. He's realized what he's about to lose, my sister said with a knowing smile. Amazing how quickly they come around when the divorce papers are filed and the bank accounts are frozen. What should I do? Meet him, listen to what he has to say, but remember the moment he chose to walk out with her. He made his decision. Anything else is just damage control. Richard suggested lunch at our usual spot, an upscale bistro, where the maitre d' knew us by name. When I arrived, he was already seated looking haggard and somehow diminished, without his usual confident posture. Clara. He stood as I approached. Thank you for coming. I sat without returning his greeting. What do you want, Richard? To apologize, to explain. He ran a hand through his silver hair. What happened with Sophia? It was a mistake. A terrible lapse in judgment. A lapse in judgment is forgetting an anniversary or saying something thoughtless. Sleeping with our son's fiancée and participating in blackmail goes well beyond that. His face flushed. I never meant for things to go so far. Sophia can be persuasive. When she told me about Jason being gay, I panicked. I was thinking about my partners at the firm, our friends at church. I thought I was protecting our family's reputation. By sleeping with her, I kept my voice level despite the anger simmering beneath. That was your solution. That came later. He admitted, unable to meet my eyes. It just happened. She was there, sympathetic to my concerns about Jason. One thing led to another. And the blackmail? Was that an accident too? Richard shifted uncomfortably. She suggested that Jason needed motivation to maintain the engagement. For appearance's sake, I never thought of it as blackmail. Then what would you call threatening to expose our son's private life if he didn't go through with a fraudulent marriage? He had no answer for that. Diane filed divorce papers this morning, I said calmly. The accounts are frozen pending division of assets. Clara, please. His voice cracked. 30 years. We can work through this. Couples therapy, a fresh start. Sophia means nothing to me. Then why did you leave with her yesterday? I was confused, overwhelmed. Please don't throw away our marriage over one mistake. I studied the man across from me. The lines of his face I knew so intimately. The hands that had once held mine with such tenderness. And I felt nothing. The love had been hollowed out, replaced by a cold clarity. It wasn't one mistake, Richard. It was a series of calculated choices that revealed exactly who you are. And that person isn't someone I want to spend another day with, let alone the rest of my life. What about the house, our retirement plans? The community will talk. I smiled for the first time. Let them talk. I'm done living for appearances. As I stood to leave, Richard grabbed my wrist. I know about the offshore account. He hissed, desperation replacing his contrition. The one I set up through the Cayman Shell Company. If you go through with this divorce, I'll make sure you don't see a penny of it. I gently removed his hand. I know about it too. And the property in Vermont under your brother's name. Diane's forensic accountant is very thorough. The color drained from his face. You can't prove any of it. We already have. I replied, dropping a folder of documents on the table. Your partner Walter was very helpful once I showed him the evidence of your creative accounting on the Westfield project. Apparently, he's not interested in being dragged down with you. I left him staring at the evidence of his financial deception. A different kind of betrayal, laid bare. Phase 1 of our plan was complete. Richard was neutralized. Now for Sophia. The cafe I chose for my meeting with Sophia was public enough to ensure safety, but quiet enough for our conversation to remain private. I arrived 20 minutes early to prepare, selecting a corner table with a clear view of both entrances. Diane and Marcus waited at a nearby establishment, ready to intervene if needed. Sophia arrived precisely on time, dressed immaculately, in a cream pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her smile faltered slightly when she saw me already seated and waiting. "Clara." She greeted me with practiced warmth. "I'm glad you reached out. The situation has gotten out of hand, and I think it's time we women sorted things out. Please sit." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Would you like some tea? I've already ordered for both of us." She hesitated before sliding gracefully into the seat. "How presumptuous. I remember you mentioned chamomile was your favorite during one of our wedding planning sessions," I said, pouring from the small pot between us. "Back when I thought you were going to be my daughter-in-law, not my husband's mistress." Her smile tightened. "Clara, I understand you're hurt. But relationships are complicated. What Richard and I share. Let me stop you right there." I interrupted, my voice pleasant but firm. "I didn't ask you here to discuss your relationship with my husband. That's irrelevant now." "Irrelevant?" She seemed genuinely surprised. "Richard and I are divorcing. He's all yours if you still want him, now that his assets are frozen and his partnership at the firm is in jeopardy." Sophia's composure slipped momentarily. "What do you mean in jeopardy?" "Oh, you didn't know." I sipped my tea calmly. "Richard has been hiding assets and misreporting income for years. His partners are not pleased, to put it mildly. But that's his problem, not ours." She recovered quickly, her practiced smile returning. "I'm sorry to hear that. Still, I'm sure we can all move forward amicably. Jason understands the importance of discretion. Perhaps we can come to a new arrangement that benefits everyone." "Actually, that's why I wanted to meet." I set down my cup. "To discuss arrangements." From my purse, I removed a small recording device and placed it on the table between us. Sophia's eyes narrowed. "What's this?" "Insurance," I replied. "I'm going to make you an offer, Sophia. But first I need you to understand exactly where things stand." I pressed play on the device. Marcus's voice emerged, followed by Sophia's. "You need to control your boyfriend, Marcus. If Jason doesn't go through with this wedding, I'll make sure every parent at that hospital knows their children are being treated by a gay doctor who's been lying about his personal life." "That's blackmail, Sophia. Call it whatever you want. But remember, I have photos of you two together. Very compromising photos. Dr. Brennan would be particularly interested in them. Don't you think? Such a devoted family values man." I stopped the recording and watched as Sophia's carefully constructed facade crumbled. "That's illegal," she hissed. "You can't record someone without their consent in Massachusetts." "Technically correct," I acknowledged. "Which is why this recording won't be used in court. But it doesn't need to be. You see, while you were focused on blackmailing my son, you missed some important details about his workplace." I removed a letter from my purse and slid it across the table. Sophia scanned it, her expression growing increasingly alarmed. "Dr. Brennan retired 3 months ago," I continued. "The new head of the board is Dr. Eleanor Wright. She happens to be the proud mother of a gay son, and she's been spearheading the hospital's new diversity initiative. She was quite disturbed to hear about your attempts to threaten a valued physician's career." "This is slander," Sophia protested weakly. "You have no proof. We also took the liberty of contacting James Harrington's family in Chicago," I continued, as if she hadn't spoken. "Your previous almost father-in-law had quite a lot to say once he realized he wasn't the only married man you'd targeted." The color drained from Sophia's face. "What do you want from me?" "Simple. You will sign this." I produced a legal document and placed it beside the letter. "It's a statement acknowledging that your engagement to Jason was fraudulent, entered into under false pretenses. You forfeit any claims to gifts, property, or financial considerations related to the engagement or planned wedding. You agree to never contact any member of our family again. And you consent to a restraining order preventing you from coming within 500 feet of Jason or his workplace." "And why would I sign that?" Despite her obvious distress, Sophia attempted to reclaim some control. "Because if you don't, we'll be forced to file criminal charges for blackmail. And while our recording may not be admissible, The testimony of multiple witnesses, including Marcus and Richard, will be quite compelling. Richard would never testify against me, she scoffed. Are you certain? He seemed quite eager to cooperate when he realized the extent of his legal exposure. Self-preservation is a powerful motivator. I slid a pen across the table. Oh, and there's one more thing. We know about Amanda Peterson. The name hit Sophia like a physical blow. How did you? The internet is a remarkable resource. Your former roommate had quite a lot to say about the identity you left behind in Seattle. The fraudulent credit applications, the stolen social security number, the warrant that's still active. You're bluffing, she whispered, but her hands trembled as she reached for the pen. Do you really want to find out? Sophia signed the document with a shaking hand, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. I want you out of Boston by the end of the week, I said, taking back the signed paper. If I ever see or hear from you again, everything we've uncovered goes directly to the authorities. You think you've won, Sophia said, gathering her composure for one final stand. But you've lost your husband. Your perfect family is destroyed. I smiled genuinely this time. No, Sophia, I've lost an illusion. And in its place, I've gained something far more valuable: truth. Something you wouldn't recognize if it introduced itself with a business card. As she walked away, shoulders rigid with defeated pride, I felt no satisfaction, only relief. The danger she posed to my son was neutralized. The web of lies she had woven was unraveling, and though my marriage was over, something new and authentic was taking its place. That evening, I returned to Diane's house to find Jason and Marcus cooking dinner together. The easy intimacy between them, the way they moved around each other with comfortable familiarity, made my heart ache with a bittersweet mixture of joy and regret. This was what my son had been hiding, not something shameful, but something beautiful. It's done, I told them, placing Sophia's signed statement on the counter. She won't be bothering us again. Mom, you're incredible. Jason hugged me tightly. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, I replied, holding his face between my hands. Just be happy. Be yourself. That's all I've ever wanted. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw genuine, unguarded joy in my son's eyes. The road ahead would be challenging: divorce proceedings, community gossip, rebuilding our lives from the ashes of deceit. But we would face it together, with truth as our foundation. As we sat down to dinner, the three of us plus Diane, I realized we were already becoming something new. Not the perfect family I had once believed in, but something real, something honest. And in that moment, I wouldn't have traded it for any illusion, no matter how beautiful. 6 months passed in a blur of legal meetings, property divisions, and fresh starts. I moved out of the colonial house with its picture-perfect facade and into a charming apartment overlooking the Charles River. The space was entirely my own, decorated according to my tastes, not Richard's preferences or social expectations. The divorce proceedings revealed even more financial deception than I'd initially discovered. Richard had been hiding assets for years, preparing for a retirement that apparently didn't include me. With Diane's expertise and the evidence provided by Richard's business partner, I secured a settlement that ensured my financial independence. Richard's reputation in the architectural community was damaged beyond repair. His partnership dissolved amid accusations of financial impropriety. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved to Florida with a new girlfriend. Not Sophia, who had disappeared from Boston as instructed, but another younger woman seeking security. I felt nothing but pity for them both. Healing came slowly in unexpected moments. The first time I introduced myself as Clara Thompson rather than Mrs. Richard Thompson at a community event. The Sunday morning I spent reading in bed instead of attending a church service that had always felt performative. The evening I hosted a dinner party for my new friends, divorced women and gay couples who had no interest in keeping up appearances. My relationship with Jason blossomed into something deeper and more authentic than before. Without secrets between us, we discovered a new level of understanding. I joined a support group for parents of LGBTQ children, where I met others navigating similar journeys of acceptance and growth. The most meaningful change came from within. The woman who had devoted 30 years to maintaining a perfect illusion was gone, replaced by someone who valued truth above comfort, authenticity above approval. One sunny Saturday in October, 6 months after the day that changed everything, Jason and Marcus held a small commitment ceremony in the garden of my new apartment building. No formal invitations or elaborate decorations. Just 30 close friends, fairy lights strung between trees, and a love so genuine it brought tears to my eyes. Jason wore a simple grey suit, Marcus a navy one. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promises of honesty and support that reflected all they had already weathered together. As I watched them seal their commitment with a kiss surrounded by people who celebrated, rather than tolerated their love, I felt a profound sense of rightness. "You doing okay, Mom?" Jason asked later, finding me alone by the small fountain in the garden's corner. "Better than okay," I assured him. "I'm happy, truly happy. I keep thinking about how different things could have been," he said quietly, "if we'd just been honest from the beginning. We can't change the past." I squeezed his hand. "But we can learn from it. No more hiding, no more pretending." The week after the ceremony, I ran into Richard at a local coffee shop. The encounter I had dreaded for months turned out to be anticlimactic. He looked older, diminished, somehow his confident posture replaced by a slight stoop. When he saw me, something like shame flickered across his face. "Clara." He nodded stiffly. "You look well." "Thank you." I replied, surprised to find I meant it when I added, "I hope you're doing okay, Richard." "Managing," he said, eyes not quite meeting mine. "I heard about Jason's ceremony. With that man." "With Marcus," I corrected gently. "His husband." Richard flinched at the word. "Is he happy, Jason?" "Very. He's authentic now, free." Something like regret passed across Richard's face. "I'm glad. Despite everything, I do want him to be happy." As we parted ways, I felt the last threads of bitterness dissolve. Richard would likely never fully understand or accept Jason's life, but that was his loss. My son no longer needed his father's approval to be complete. 2 weeks after the commitment ceremony, Jason called with news that left me breathless with joy. He and Marcus had been approved as prospective adoptive parents. They were beginning the process of building their family. "We want you involved every step of the way, Mom," Jason said. "Our kids need a grandmother who will love them unconditionally." Grandmother. The word opened a future I thought had been stolen from me. The same day I received an unexpected email. A mother whose child was Jason's patient had reached out desperate for guidance. Her 16-year-old son had recently come out, and she was struggling to adjust her expectations and support him properly. "Dr. Thompson said you might be willing to talk with me," she wrote. "He said you understand this journey better than most." I responded, immediately inviting her for coffee. When we met, I recognized in her eyes the same fear and confusion I had felt, the grief not for who her child was, but for who she had imagined him to be. "The hardest part," I told her, "is letting go of the future you planned. But what replaces it can be more beautiful than anything you imagined." As autumn turned to winter, I found myself becoming an unexpected advocate, speaking at PFLAG meetings, mentoring parents struggling with acceptance, building bridges between generations. The woman who had once prioritized appearances above all else now helped others see beyond them to the authentic connections underneath. My journey from betrayal to freedom hadn't been easy or straightforward. The pain of Richard's infidelity and Sophia's manipulation had left scars that would never completely fade. But those very wounds had created space for new growth, for a life built on truth rather than appearances. One evening, as I watched the sunset from my apartment window, I realized something profound. The betrayal that had seemed like an ending had actually been a beginning. By shattering the perfect picture I had clung to it, had freed me to create something real, something honest, something mine. The family I had now, Jason and Marcus, my sister Diane, the community of friends I'd built, wasn't perfect by conventional standards. But it was authentic, and in that authenticity lay a peace I had never known in 30 years of marriage. Sometimes the greatest gifts arrive disguised as losses. Sometimes we must lose everything we thought we wanted to discover what we truly need. And sometimes, when life shatters the illusions we've built around ourselves, it's not the end of the story. It's just the beginning of a more honest one. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to something better in your life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of finding strength through heartbreak resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that. Sometimes losing what you thought you wanted can lead you to what you truly deserve. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, authenticity may be harder than illusion, but it's infinitely more rewarding.